right, we've got continued coverage tonight on the incredible fallout after ICE agents shot and killed a woman this week in Minneapolis, Renee Good. Thousands of people marched across the country and in the Bay Area protesting ICE, protesting Trump administration policies. Joining me now to talk about the recent events is Gabriel Espinosa-Ramos, a local immigration attorney and employment lawyer. Thank you for doing this. I know you were in here talking to us Wednesday, Gabriel. Yes. Since then, we've seen different images, different videos. Some say most significantly the body camera video of the officer involved. Did you learn anything different from that?
No, it reiterated what I stated on Wednesday. So with law enforcement, federal law enforcement carries immunity for any actions committed on the job. So it's part of the Federal Tort Claims Act. However, there is a law enforcement provision which states that if there are a number of torts, intentional torts, such as abuse of process, which in my opinion, after watching the video, the officer abused his process given that late Nicole Good did not pose any deadly force or threat to him. He exceeded his force, and what that did is many legal experts who have weighed in as well believe that that would bring forth the ability for her family and the estate to bring forth a lawsuit for wrongful death.
All right, I don't need to tell you that we're hearing all kinds of arguments on both sides. I've heard some law enforcement experts argue that everything changed when Good accelerated, especially when the body camera video shows that she knew the officer was there, but still accelerated. Would that make any difference?
Not necessarily, given that there were no officers in her immediate vicinity behind her. I saw the video repeatedly, and even from a different angle where it showed that she was attempting to evade. At worst, maybe evading, but they're not law enforcement. They're ICE officials. They enforce immigration functions. She was a U.S. citizen. Therefore, that would not have applied. If she were to have tried to use her vehicle as a weapon, as Vance incorrectly stated, based on the camera footage, then maybe, but that was not the case based on multiple angles, based with the body cam footage, as well as the videos that were showed immediately following the incident. So no, she was not using it as a means to attack the law and for the ICE officials.
All right, and just to clarify to people, we're hearing what you're saying, we're hearing what Homeland Security, for example, is saying, and you mentioned the Vice President, that the officer acted in self-defense. They're arguing, yeah, she did weaponize the car. Let's listen to a little bit of what Vice President J.D. Vance had to say.
The reason this woman is dead is because she tried to ram somebody with her car, and that guy acted in self-defense. That is why she lost her life. If you have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action, that's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job.
All right, I know what you think, Gabriel, but let's just have you react to what the Vice President is arguing there.
That is not true. Federal law enforcement does not carry complete immunity. As I mentioned, the law enforcement provision to the Federal Tort Claims Act is exactly what that is, the purpose of that. And that is when a federal law enforcement agent, like ICE officials, they're federal law enforcement agencies, he committed a tort, a wrongful tort, by exceeding the force that was necessary to attempt to, at best, question, but there was really no basis. She's a U.S. citizen. I think she mentioned that as well. So their function is to detain people who they suspect to be in the U.S. unlawfully. If there was no basis, if that wasn't the basis, which it seems like it wasn't, they had no reason to try to compel her to stay, and she tried to evade them.
All right, let me just ask, is there an instance where an officer or an agent can shoot at a vehicle with somebody inside the car? Does it make a difference if it's moving, or am I getting too detailed here?
If they were using it to try to run them over, quite frankly, perhaps, but that was simply not the case. She specifically reversed. There were no agents behind her. I saw the video from two angles. Therefore, the justification that was used by Noam and Vance in my opinion, based on the evidence, is simply inaccurate.
Maybe there always is, but any implications of the FBI taking over the case with no involvement from the people there locally?
It will make it certainly more difficult to try to enforce perhaps a state crime, because there's a difference between a federal charge and a state charge. Any crime committed on state soil can be pursued as a crime. For example, if it were to have happened here, we could have pursued charges here as well. But if the FBI, federal law enforcement, is not cooperating, it would make it a lot more difficult. However, there are some eyewitnesses who I believe are coming forward with providing some evidence as to what occurred that day.
Yeah.
So that could help.
They're even saying there could be more video that
Exactly.
we haven't seen yet. All right, 2 more people, as you know, were shot by federal agents Thursday in Portland. What questions does this raise for the Trump administration?
It's just a chilling effect to are we gratuitously being arrested and having our federal agents used as weaponized against our citizens and our inhabitants in the country, because the justifications that I am hearing for this violence simply don't add up with the evidence being shown. So that is concerning. Essentially, in my legal opinion, is that ICE officers have, for the last 12 months, exceeding their force and conducting their operations in very illegal ways.
All right, I know I'm asking you to speculate, Gabriel, but this is all under intense review. Do you think that the officer will be charged?
I think it will be an uphill battle given the administration's attempt to shield him. However, there is a lot of compelling evidence to demonstrate that his actions exceeded the scope of his duties, which in my opinion, as well as many other legal experts in the civil rights realm, agree that would fall under the law enforcement provision of the Federal Tort Claims Act. So that's what I want people to know and take away from this, is that Vance said he has complete immunity. That is under the normal circumstance where there's no exception to law enforcement. However, the exception to the Federal Tort Claim Act for law enforcement provision, federal agents like this officer, is something that would fall under this, what happened here, because there was no bodily threat or harm to him or his subordinates with Nicole Good attempting to escape.
All right, let me just ask, in your position, and you've been in all kinds of situations, what would you tell someone, Gabriel, who might, hope not, but find themselves in a similar situation with a lot of very angry, intense protests ongoing?
Definitely continue peacefully protesting. Do not escalate a situation that is obviously very tense. We have a First Amendment right, free speech. However, First Amendment right to free speech does not protect inciting violence, does not protect inflammatory language that could be interpreted as violence, or body language that could be interpreted as perhaps threatening, right, an officer. So we see sometimes protesters throw things, right, at the officers, at the ICE officers. I would strongly advise to not do that. I understand that there's a lot of outrage. Please don't do that, because that could potentially be used to impose federal charges against you.
So bottom line, comply for your own safety.
Exactly. However, still document if you feel it is safe to do so. We have been seeing some of these officers, unfortunately, pointing weapons at people who are documenting. However, I want to clarify, that is a legal right to document so long as you are not interfering with an operation from a distance. That is not illegal. So when you see people doing that, the officers doing that, that is illegal. However, just because something is illegal doesn't mean that, you know, your safety comes first. So also be mindful of that. That's my main takeaway for everyone protesting, is, you know, your safety and that of others.
All right. Thank you for making it clear to people and kind of spelling it out, Gabriel.
My pleasure.
Again, Gabriel Espinosa-Ramos, immigration and employment attorney, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
we
you
really
so much.
appreciate it.
Thank you.